Hi, I'm Suzanne,
And I'm Zoe.
and you are listening to Sex Advice for Seniors. And we thought we would talk about today what we should be looking for in later life, because I hear from a lot of women that seem to be seeking what they were seeking in their 20s and feeling disappointed that they're not able to find that one romantic kind of be all end all partner, and frustrated by the apps, which there's been a news report are declining in popularity. I don't know if you read that, but Match.com lost a huge amount off its share price. People are leaving the apps. They're not feeling that they're delivering for them. I can totally understand that. But they're wondering, where am I going to find this kind of perfect person that they think they should be looking for? So that's what
Right.
I thought we could talk about.
I love that. And one of the things that occurs to me is that, maybe this is a spoiler alert and I'm jumping to the end, but we'll see. My feeling is always that we have such a very limited in Western culture, Europe or United States, we have such a limited set of options for what we are conditioned to believe is acceptable, that we should want, and so, a lot of that is, really, it's kind of entirely based on lifelong pair bonding, and our economy is set up to support that, and we parent that way, and that's kind of economically, socioeconomic landscape really dictates that we, I don't know what's chicken and egg here, but that we live a certain way and that we partner a certain way. You and I have not lived that way.
No, and this past week I held this thing called the Advantages of Age Awards, which was celebrating people and organizations championing positive aging, and the room was full of very colorful people, primarily because we asked them to dress flamboyantly. But what was clear from the room, the people in the room, was that a lot of us were outsiders, and we'd chosen to live outside the norm. And that's part of the ethos of our Advantages of Age organization, is that the sort of punks of aging, is that championing a different way to go about aging. And I think that as part of that, we can think differently about relationships as we age. And I suspect that because of our conditioning and because of societal expectations, we don't really consider the broader view of what a relationship might look like in later life. And so as a result, we end up feeling frustrated by not being able to get what we think we should be looking for.
Right.
And I know that for me, one of the aspects of being in alternative lifestyles, such as swinging and things like that, is that people do have a much different perception of what a relationship, casual or otherwise, might look like. And I'm drawn to those lifestyles because I can be somebody else than I was in my marriage, where I was bringing up kids. I was doing all the stuff that, as you say, you do when you're younger and you're looking for a partner. And I'm not looking for those things anymore. But I know that people find the way that I do these relationships quite challenging.
Yeah.
Not, by the way, not the men that I'm with. I don't think they find them challenging at all. I think
No.
I think they find it quite refreshing that I don't give them any brain damage, and that I'm not seeking anything from them beyond having a nice time when we have a nice time. And that's about it, really.
Yeah. I'm married now. We met 7 years ago, December 2016. What is that?
Yeah, like 7 years ago. Yeah.
We met 7 years ago. when I was 52. And so I had a long stint there of living more of a lifestyle that you live, and
Yeah.
was happy to do so. In fact, I was really, really resistant and hesitant to get into a relationship, but it's something my now husband really wanted, was a committed partnership. He wanted a partner. And I honor that. There's nothing wrong with that. He actually had done quite a bit of work on himself, and he, he'd been married twice, and his second wife died of cancer, and so he'd been through a lot. He lived a lot, and he really wanted a buddy, a companion.
Yeah, and it's when I was thinking about this topic in the middle of the night, which is when I woke up and wrote it down, I was thinking about the fact that for a lot of people, and I think I would include myself in this, is that sometimes what I miss in not being in a committed relationship are those more intimate moments with somebody,
Mm-hmm.
are the companionship aspects of a relationship, are the tenderness that you get from having a partner where you can just hold hands or cuddle or do, partnery type things. And sometimes I think, okay, I think about that. I do think about that. But I also know that that there are intimate moments in my casual relationships as well, which make up for that full-time companionship thing,
Yeah.
which I'm not very good at,
Well,
frankly.
the other piece of it is that it's really, it's easy to romanticize all of that sort of companionship and affection, and but you also are spared the sort of nitty gritty of relationship maintenance and negotiation of needs and miscommunications, and I mean, like, come on now. It's a trade-off no matter what. I mean, I feel that way about so many things in life, and particularly relationship, because I'm so immersed in the world of relationship. But it's like, there's no one way. I have a lot of people asking me about opening up their relationship and becoming poly and ethical non-monogamy, and and then I have a lot of people who are sort of appalled at that idea, or one partner wants to try it and the other partner's not game. Of course, that won't work. But it's like there's no right way. You can do it however you do it. And and there are benefits and drawbacks to everything in life. I felt that way when I was a graphic designer in a previous professional incarnation, and I was like, I just want to freelance. I want the freedom that it gives me, and then the financial instability, unpredictability would drive me crazy, and then I'd take a staff position, and then I felt like I was in jail, and so then I'd freelance again, and then I'd miss the paycheck, and then I go back. I feel that way about my relationships.
Yeah, and look, there's scientific evidence that single women, especially I suspect older single women, are happier than women, especially in long-term relationships. Men, on the flip side, are happier in stable relationships than they are scientifically proven in their single life. And I mean, the evidence is, why wouldn't you, as a single woman, not want to leave behind some of the crap that, let's face it, comes with sometimes being in a heteronormative relationship, which often involves having to do the cooking or having to do the cleaning. Not everybody, because I know men that love cooking, but I suspect that for the majority, certainly the ones I've met, I find myself very quickly being domesticated. And that's partly why I have been so resistant to being in a relationship, is because I fall into that pattern of behavior, whether or not I even want to. I just do. It just happens, from years of being a mother and doing all of that stuff. I just end up being a domesticated, boring old person. And I just don't, and I reflect on that and think, when I start to feel that level of discomfort with somebody, I know I'm not happy, and I know I need to step back and reevaluate why I'm suddenly being led back into this world, um, and and how happy that makes me feel, which is not very happy.
Yeah.
But I know that, there are a lot of there's and I also know that there's a lot of women that struggle not just with this desire for this kind of romanticized version of relationships, but also with the aspect of their libido not being what it once was. And so the expectation is, I may have this lovely romantic relationship with someone who hopefully doesn't want to have sex with me very often. And
Yeah.
I think that's hard to find.
Yeah. So how do we figure out what it is that we want?
Mm-mm. That's a good question. How do we figure out what we want?
I I think I think that, gosh, Suzanne, people sometimes people roll their eyes at me because they really don't want to have the level of the depth of conversation that I inspire, that I require to have. It's like, oh God, here we go. Well, I think that you have to sort of like, look, you brought it up. You mentioned when we were chatting before before we started recording. You mentioned that especially as we get older and we're no longer, like, the kids are adults if we have them, and we're in bodies that allow us to sort of let go of. We're at an age where we're not so concerned about the perfect body or the way all of that. It's We have an opportunity, and many women do, like, let go of the idea of finding that perfect mate, right?
Mm,
We
yeah.
don't need that perfect mate anymore. And many of us are financially, independent. We don't need to depend on a second income from our partner. So then it becomes about, like, well, what do I want? Do I want companionship? Do I want sex? Do I want to leave the companionship for my close friends? There's
Mhm.
a level of, like, some of that intimacy that gets fulfilled in friendships. That kind of human connection. And then the sex can be fulfilled uh, by a partner, but it doesn't necessarily need to be a big committed relationship. So the question really is, why partner? What would I hope to gain from that?
Mm.
And if I were in my 20s, 30s, I might be looking for a suitable partner, mate for building a family,
Mm.
and gaining wealth. I mean, it's almost like a business endeavor in a sense. Isn't that romantic?
Yeah. And many people, especially women again, seem to find their, I know I did, my female friendships in my 50s started to become much, much more important to me than they were in my younger days when I was all about the guys. And now most of my friendships are with women, although my best friend is a man. But I think having those deep friendships with women and those connections and that those bonds that I now have with women means that my requirement to have that with a man is less, and I don't need him to do that for me because I've got women that fulfill that role. And I know that for me, when I'm looking for somebody again if I'm looking for somebody to do all of that, I'm just not going to find that person. nobody knows me like my old friends do, or people that have known me for, it's like you have to start all over again with somebody explaining your history to them, getting them to discover all this stuff about you, which some people love. But I
Yeah.
just think, oh, I've got to tell 5 million stories all over again. Yeah. Oh, here we go again. So yeah, I think we can look at people in for the value that they bring to us and we bring to them. And I know that seems really transactional, but I do kind of feel that way when I'm with somebody, a man especially, like how much value is this adding to my life and how much value do I want to add to their life? And mainly, the longer I get to know them, often the more I discover about them that just disappoints me. So I just think, let's just leave this in the little box that it works for me, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that's the other thing is that if you are, I mean, I do disagree with you about the body thing because I have spent, it's taken me 2 years. I worked out, it's taken me maybe longer than 2 years, actually. It's taken me over 2 years to get to the size and the body that I really like. And I'm now quite like, people are looking at me and going, oh, you're really small. I've never really considered myself as a small person. Men respond to me differently because I'm like in shape, and it's
Mm-hmm.
clear I spend some time doing that. And the other day when I was walking around, I felt light, and that
Mm-hmm.
lightness, I realized, like, that lightness, um it sort of is like this overarching thing now that infuses everything. Like when I have sex, I feel light, and it's
I love
different.
it. Yeah.
Like when someone holds me, I feel like they're holding onto something solid and, and
Yeah.
not like really fleshy, which some people love, but I really like that feeling of being really solid. And
Yeah.
I feel that when they grab me, and I'm like, oh, I really like this fit. But it's really a concerted effort on my part to do that. And I've
I,
realized that my body confidence makes me feel more sexual, makes me feel more attractive. It takes work, but once you actually get there, it's just maintenance. And actually, it makes me feel different about relationships because feeling desirable and attractive means that I have more choice.
yeah. That's right.
And when you have more choice, you're not so desperate because you're
Yeah.
just like, I can take this or leave this. Like it's I'm present in the world in a different way. It's taken me a huge amount of effort and time and desire, which is another thing. But being an older woman and feeling desirable is something that's important to me. And I know it's not important to everybody, but it is important to me.
I
And
think there's
so,
room for both of that. There are a whole lot of people who um operate that way. And to be really honest with you, I mean, I think that all of us want to feel desired in some fashion. For some of us that are more sexually based, that are more sexually expressed, and that's a bigger part of our operating system.
hmm,
I think feeling desired is part of that, and feeling, the having your desirability sort of reflected back to you can be really life affirming, you know?
yeah, I mean, again, if you want to design your life the way you want to design it in later life, and you want to be a sexual person, then you have to acknowledge as an older woman that you're competing in a big pool of desirable people, most of whom are younger than you, and therefore automatically more desirable because that's the way biology works, right? I mean, so people who are still procreating generally are more desirable than people who have stopped.
Right. From an
Just generous.
evolutionary, psychology, science standpoint, absolutely,
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I'm saying anything radical here, although people might think I am. I don't know. But if that's part of your landscape as an older person redesigning your life, then you have to work out how you're going to stay in the game.
Yeah.
Whereas if you decide that you don't want to be in the game, then you can do what you want. You can, if you want to not give a shit what you eat and, settle into your body in a different way, that's absolutely fine. But, heteronormative relationships do become more difficult as you age if you don't maintain yourself, sadly. I mean, that's just, I know plenty of people who like other, bigger sizes, whatever. And there's always somebody out there for everybody. But I do know that it becomes easier when you are of a certain size and harder when you're not. That's it.
Well,
But that's it.
but the other piece of it too is that, like, if you are someone who is attracted to people who take care of themselves, and that can mean a million different things. It can mean
Yeah.
grooming, it can mean hair, it can mean,
Yeah.
the way you dress, the way you present yourself. If you're someone who is attracted to that, you want to present that. Plus, it's
Yeah.
not just for dating, like
No.
right now, I have not put in the 2 years that you have put in, and I'm carrying about 15 pounds, 15, 20 pounds of like pandemic menopause weight that is hard to
Yeah.
shed at this point,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
really does take that extra concerted effort that I haven't made. And it's not just sex that it affects. It's, walking, going to a dinner party, walking through the store, I mean, like, I'm not as comfortable in my body. And part of that is like my joints hurt more. And part of it is my clothes don't fit. And part of that is like, I don't have that pep in my step.
Yeah. It does get easier if it makes you feel any better when you get to the other side.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually,
This has only been when I've got to the other side, and during that part, that was crap.
yeah.
So just wait a few years, and it does well. It seemed to me to get easier.
Well, I'll tell you
I had
something,
I had to get to
Suzanne.
the other side first.
Well, I started doing Pilates about 6 months ago, 6 months ago, and it was
Yeah,
amazing how quickly it
yeah,
it like I mean, it really didn't take that many sessions, that many Pilates sessions to really feel the difference. I mean,
yeah,
no more joint pain at all whatsoever, and I have way more stamina and feel stronger. I mean, it's pretty amazing. It's not like, I have to remind myself, it's not like you go 2 years and then all of a sudden you can flip the switch and feel good.
no.
It's incremental,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. No, for sure. But yeah, I mean, like I said, it's you can rethink your relationships. You can rethink what a partner looks like. You can rethink whether you just want a companion. You can rethink, you can consider as an older person how you can, and some of it is around financial independence for sure. But when I think about even some of the unhappy marriages that many of my friends seem to exist in, I, I think, well, what's 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 the alternative to that? You know, is the alternative that that being single is a dreadful, dreadful thing, or can you redesign your marriage so that you can have something else outside it? Or maybe people already do. I suspect many people already do that. They just have lots of social stuff going on outside, so that the marriage becomes more of a financial
Right.
um, partnership than actually anything that has any emotional content.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that what do you want is a really big question, because people don't know what they could have And that's the issue for me, is that they don't know what's possible because they're still thinking about their younger, you know, selves and what they might have had or wanted back then.
Yeah, and I think what is interesting is that I do see a number of people who are, divorced, or they've lost a spouse and they find themselves single, and then they have relationships, but they do relationships differently than they did in their 20s and 30s. Right.
Yeah.
So they're single and dating, and they end up in like a relationship that feels like it moves slower. There's more intimacy. We're not
Mm.
so blinded by sex. We're not trying to figure out like the merging of lives or the combining of lives in your 60s, for instance, can look completely different than it did when you were kids, when you were young, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, you already have a wealth of experiences, and there isn't so much an interdependence.
That's absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And the people that I know now I'm thinking of one woman in particular who recently got together with someone a bit younger. And I think that's the other thing, of course, is that, the whole age gap, the whole age difference. There's lots of older women now hanging out, going out with men that are younger than them. Not talking about the sort of Joan Collins age gap or the Cher age gap or the Madonna age gap. We're just
Forgot
talking
about
about,
Jane Collins and her young men.
you know, like the 20-year, like the 10-year age gap, which doesn't seem so significant if you're in your 60s and you're with somebody in their 50s. It doesn't seem that
Right.
radical anymore. And that seems to be working for a lot of people that I know, who both of them are past the age where they want families and kids.
Yeah.
And, the women are very energetic and full of life, and the men are the same. And so, they're thinking about all of that differently, and they seem to be really, really happy in those kind of relationships. So I think also there's that thing of looking at age differences and thinking, well, is 10 years really all that much?
Yeah.
If I'm 60 some odd with somebody in their 50s, like, is that really a significant difference?
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
so there's that as well. I think there's so many different ways that you can look at it, and it's about being more expansive in your thinking at this age, and
Yes.
and really considering what's important. And sex is or isn't important, you know, and finding someone, again, from a sexual point of view. I think the other thing is that now that I'm much more confident around all of that than I was when I was younger, I'm also very clear about, is this person going to work for me in bed? Like, is this really the kind of thing that I'm looking for? Because they're quite fixed in at this age as well about how they like having sex.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
so you meet somebody who's like really dominant or really whatever, and then you think, I don't know if I want it quite like this.
Yes, and yes, to sex and everything else in their lives. Somebody who loads the dishwasher a certain way, or I mean, that's more easy to accommodate than incompatibility in sex in the bedroom. But there's all kinds of things that
Mm,
are not going to change at this point.
exactly. That's
Right,
right.
right. I
Yeah.
think too, and maybe this is just me, and the people close to me, but I feel as though as we get older, we have a greater capacity to see people for who they are, to really
Yeah.
see people as who they are, and not who we hope that they become, or
Yes,
we hope that they turn out to be.
that's right. They're not going to change. I'm not going to change. You're not going to change. That's it. Yeah, and I think that's a really, really good point, is that we're not living with that hope that, which is what I did when I was younger. I was like, oh, but he can change. And then I
Yeah.
realized 15 years later, oh no, he can't.
Or like, he's such a good guy. Like, he's a really good guy. It doesn't really matter that he doesn't have a sex drive. Maybe that'll change. And I, and my, it's those things that when you're in your 50s, 60s, 70s that you can make a much better choice for yourself.
Yeah, and that's why I think, that it's all about recognizing what is, for me, what I like about the person and what I'm not so keen on, and whether I can live with the not so keen on that stuff.
Yeah.
Things. And if I can't, then I can't. But if I can, then I'm like, oh, okay, we can work this one out.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's late in LA. It's early in London. And I hope you have a very, very lovely day. That's it from me, Suzanne.
And that's it for me, Zoe.